And the mayor of Chicago is fighting racism with racism. We'll take a look at Lori Lightfoot's latest controversial antics. Plus, you won't believe this one. Yes, you will. President Biden calls the graduating class of the Coast Guard Academy dull. We'll discuss that shining moment of irony with attorney and Victory News contributor John Graves. Right now, let's go to Mike Garofalo with today's top stories. Mike.
As attacks from the air continue, Israel continued to pound the Gaza Strip with airstrikes early on Thursday. A number of loud explosions rattled the Palestinian territory with bright orange flashes lighting up the pre-dawn sky. Israel's prime minister on Wednesday vowed to press ahead with the offensive despite calls from the United States to wind down the operation that has left hundreds dead. U.S. President Joe Biden had called for significant de-escalation by day's end after 10 days of heavy fighting. The latest strikes came after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pushed back against U.S. pressure to wind down the offensive against Gaza's militant Hamas rulers. Pro-Palestinian protesters marched to the heavily guarded U.S. embassy in Indonesia's capital on Thursday. Once there, they demanded an end to Israeli airstrikes in the Gaza Strip, waving Indonesian and Palestinian flags and signs that read "Free Palestine." Several hundred demonstrators gathered along a major street in Jakarta that runs outside of the embassy. Indonesia is the world's most populous Muslim-majority nation. It does not have formal diplomatic relations with Israel, and there is not an Israeli embassy in the country. No word on if the protesters also called for Hamas to stop firing rockets into Israel. Well, it seems Democrats in Congress can't seem to move past some of the events that took place following the November election. Just yesterday, the House voted to investigate the January 6th Capitol riots. The vote, which now heads to the U.S. Senate, would create a supposed independent commission to investigate the January 6th breach of the U.S. Capitol. The proposed measure would create in the legislative branch an independent 10-member commission to investigate relevant facts and circumstances relating to the attack on the Capitol and evaluate the causes of and the lessons learned from the attack. Republicans are objecting. They say the makeup of the commission and how it would be run is not bipartisan. Well, if you are a white reporter in Chicago and your beat is covering Mayor Lori Lightfoot, you may be shut out. According to Fox News, white reporters were recently told by the mayor's press office that they could no longer interview Mayor Lori Lightfoot one-on-one due to the color of their skin. Individual interviews would now only be granted to people of color. The report went on to say in a letter released Wednesday, Lightfoot blasted the city's media institutions for their overwhelming whiteness and maleness. But Lightfoot didn't stop there. The letter went on to challenge media outlets to hire more women of color and analyze their own coverage for examples of bias. Greg, back to you.
Mike, I absolutely do not know what to say to that. Thank you. I want to bring in attorney and Victory News contributor John Graves. John, let's go back to Israel real quick. I found a verse that I want to read. Galatians 6:7 from the Passion Translation says, God will not be mocked, for whatever you plant will be the very thing you harvest. Biden gave $235 million of your dollars to the Palestinian Authority 5 weeks ago. It's something Trump had stopped. And now you sowed a terrorist, you reap terrorist. John?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you can look at that with every one of the stories we cover. When you have bad policy, the result, the fruit, what you reap is bad results. And it decimates the people in this country, and it inappropriately affects people of faith as well as the nation of Israel. And so you can look at that with every one of the stories, Greg. Look at the reverse racism in Chicago. That's the certified racism. If you're male and if you're white, those two things are fair game, and there's no outcry for it, even from a white male president.
So why is that? Why do you think that is? Why is that not considered racism?
Because it's okay. It's politically correct to be racist against those who are white, women and men, or those who are men, period, even black or men of color. And so this is the left's agenda. If they can keep that narrative going, they can then always excuse everything they do. We don't have fair treatment. There's systemic racism. Even when you're right, you're always. And so I'm not even going to give you a fair shake or let you interview me because I don't want to have to answer any of your questions because you're not following the politically correct doctrine of the day.
Yeah.
It's no different than the commission on January 6th.
I
Same
actually
thing.
like hearing people that disagree with me. I actually like hearing that. I like to be challenged
healthy.
like that. It's very healthy. John Graves, thank you so much. We'll come back to you in a moment. Money, and a lot of it, appears to be the Democrats' answer to ending the current surge of immigration at the southern border. A report by News Nation now talked about a meaningful, quote, meaningful hour-long discussion that Vice President Harris had on Monday with U.S. Representative Vicente Gonzalez. The South Texas Democrat said he told the border czar, who's not been to the border, that a substantial amount of carefully monitored funds will be needed to stop the flow of people from Central America. In an online news briefing on Wednesday, Gonzalez revealed that the White House is requesting $4 billion from Congress. Wait, let me stop. Requesting $4 billion from you to get to the real root causes that are forcing migrants to come north. Gonzalez said he pushed hard to open up funds and opportunities for the private sector to help create more jobs and stabilize the economy so people won't want to leave their homelands. Okay, we're down there on the border. Let's go right now to Tim Fox. He's wrapping up 3 days of reporting on the illegal immigration crisis there. Tim, it's money. You've got about $4 billion coming your way. And if we will put capitalism in those countries and end capitalism here, somehow it'll get better. Tim, help me out.
Yeah, Greg, you're absolutely right. And I bet some churches here on the border would love to have that money. You know, you've heard that phrase, border churches. Well, I am literally at a border church this morning in Del Rio. To my left is the church. To my right, you see the border wall behind me, and I have with me the pastor of the Access Church, Brian Cisneros. Brian, we've talked to ranchers. We've talked to citizens. We know the impact that this thing is having on them. What's the impact on churches like your own?
Well, I think we're all feeling the burden of these migrants. We're all feeling the need, and we're sympathetic to their plight, but this is taxing all of our local resources, and churches, pastors, local leaders are responding to the need, but that is diverting resources that could be used for the local people that need help as well.
Now, about 100 yards behind my camera, the wall that we see here ends. There's an ending to this wall right here. And you said a couple of weeks ago, some folks just walked up on your church.
Yeah, just about 2 Sundays ago, we were getting ready for our 9 a.m. service here, and a young family with a little 4-year-old boy walked up, cold, hungry, tired, and we began to talk with them, and they said that their coyote, the people they paid to cross them, abandoned them, and they were lost, they were lonely, and they had the courage to come up and speak to our greeters out here, and we did our best to help them, give them some clothing, some food, and some hot coffee.
Yeah. What are you and other churches doing to partner together to help with this situation?
Well, we have seen the faith community come together, and this is going back to the surge that we saw in 2019. Local pastors, churches were coming together, gathering food, clothing, opening up their churches to house these migrants that are coming across, and so we're continuing to do that. We're also supporting strategic partnerships such as the food bank here, as well as with the Faith Mission, that are trying to meet the need of these people that are coming across.
You were here for the surge in 2019. How does this one compare to that one?
It doesn't compare at all. We thought that we saw the worst of the worst during that time, and what we are seeing is an increase of up to 300% of illegal crossings, 300% of unaccompanied children and minors. And just, you're well aware of the story that caught national attention of these 5-year-old little girls that were abandoned on a ranch not too far from here.
Yeah. Your thoughts on, we use that word crisis a lot when we're talking about what's going on here, but it literally is that. And what do you think the solution is, other than the federal government doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Well, first and foremost, we need our federal government to secure the borders. It's not just a political, principle, but this is a humanitarian crisis, and people of these countries are being exploited. And I think it's time for the church to step up. I think, we as the church, if we had some of those resources, we could better help. This is a global issue, but it's also a traditional value issue, and the church is the only organization organization that is global as well as traditional.
Now, I mentioned off the top that your church is a small church, as are a lot of those churches around here. How can our viewers help pray for you and believe God for you for things that you're doing?
The best thing is just to keep us in prayer. We're trying to do our best. We're trying to, help support the migrants, also help support law enforcement. We can't look past the fact that not only is our law enforcement being taxed. I speak with Border Patrol agents, CBP, local law enforcement every day. They just don't have enough time in the day. And supporting these, our healthcare communities is being taxed, not just with the COVID-19 crisis that we're dealing, but now with this. So just continue to lift us up in prayer and pray that our administration and our local government can help us.
All right, Brian, thank you so much for your time. Mike, we'll throw it to you.
The administration is making good on its promise to look into expanding the Supreme Court. Joe Biden's commission to study the Supreme Court and whether it should add more justices held its first public hearing yesterday. Now, during the meeting, members were sworn in and outlined their goals for the next few months. The group is composed of 36 members in total, including law professors, lawyers, and former judges. The next public meeting in late June will have witnesses testifying on proposed changes to the court. The decision by the U.S. Supreme Court to hear abortion cases, or an abortion case out of Mississippi, has some Democrats worried. In a statement released on Tuesday, Democratic National Committee Chair Jamie Harrison wrote that abortion, or killing babies, is fundamental freedom that should not be restricted. Harrison even went as far as to call abortion health care. And as we told you here on Victory News on Monday, the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization. The case challenges a Mississippi law that bans abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. Some believe the case is a direct challenge to Roe v. Wade, the 1973 decision that has led to the killing of more than 62 million unborn babies. Most Americans might not know this, but the U.S. is one of only 7 countries in the world that allows elective abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy. Well, with so much going on here in the United States since Joe Biden took office and around the world, this decision might not have made it onto your radar. Now, according to lifenews.com, the Biden administration has removed critical ethical reviews and prohibitions on taxpayer-funded experiments using fetal tissue. The report goes on to say the new guidelines, including funding for government intramural research with aborted fetal tissue, was very quietly restored so as not to draw attention. The guidelines are also said to ignore proposed changes that would prevent abuses of informed consent, stop trafficking of fetal body parts, and establish safeguards. Greg, back to you.
Okay, it seems that Americans are struggling to keep up with current events, unless, that is, if you're a viewer of conservative-leaning sources such as Fox News. According to a poll conducted by Heartland Institute, regular viewers of Fox News were far more likely to have a grasp on some of the issues impacting Americans than viewers of CNN and MSNBC. The disparity is pretty much across the board on subjects like taxes, climate change, gun violence, and federal deficits. Fox viewers routinely outperform viewers of other networks. I would love for them to poll you to see where you rate. I got a feeling you'd be pretty high. All right, let's bring John Graves back in here. John, welcome back. Many of those stories, the disturbing one for me is the Biden administration allowing now restrictions on parts of aborted babies to be researched and used. That's troubling. But this thing with the mask with Nancy Pelosi. First of all, I'm appreciative if Nancy keeps hers on, but that came out wrong. Let people make the choice is what I'm trying to say. All right, here's the thing. I've tried to figure out why this is, and I think it's a combination of two things. When everybody had to wear masks, it made us all kind of, you couldn't tell who believed in what. It reveals neurosis, number one, with Nancy or whoever, and a loss of control. If now you would know that I'm a person in fear because I'm wearing the mask all the time. Am I right or wrong? Your thoughts?
You know, you make several points there, so I'm not sure which one to cover. I want to start with your first point, which is I would love to take our viewers and see, I bet they would outperform Fox News, because it is not just conservatives who are more thoughtful than leftists. It's spiritually discerning people like the sons of Issachar who discern what's happening and know what to do about it. That's exactly where we then pivot to the rest of them. On the mask issue, just like all of the rest of these issues, what is the underlying issue? We talk about packing the Supreme Court and putting that pressure on and having a commission. And what's the very next story? Abortion. That's why they want to threaten the Supreme Court, that we're going to take your job away, we're going to take your power away, we're going to pack the Supreme Court to get what we want, because after 40 years of battling the slavery issue of our generation, 62 million innocent lives gone, it's now ready to begin to turn. So don't let up here at the end. Continue praying, but remember, every one of the rest of these stories, from COVID to mass to abortion to courts, all of them have a spiritual underpinning as well as a policy and practical part.
And that's why Victory News and Flashpoint happened, is because of that spiritual thing that God needed to be able to speak to these situations in the spirit of faith. You're right. You're absolutely right.
And I love Tim's story on the border. Pastor Cisneros is a classic example of, we need to protect the border, but we also are compassionate of the foreigner living among us or someone who is in need, but they need to follow the law. And we don't need to just do the classic leftist thing and throw more money at an immoral problem. We need to follow the laws. And nations, just like Israel, that's the dispute. They're a nation with boundaries.
And I want
when
people,
you try to rip somebody's nation apart.
That's right. I want people to start to think this way. Renew your mind to this. Every time they talk about giving money somewhere, don't see it as Congress giving money. That's your money. Start changing the way you think in that.
Right.
Thanks, John. We'll be back to you in a minute. Mike?
At the Coast Guard graduation ceremony on Wednesday in Connecticut, Joe Biden decided to borrow a line once used successfully by President Ronald Reagan.
My Coast Guard aides have been excellent. One of them taught me that, and I quote, "The Coast Guard is that hard nucleus about which the Navy forms in time of war."
And now here is President Biden's use of the same words. Watch as the attempt to get some kind of reaction falls flat. And Joe Biden is not happy about it.
I only assume that you will enjoy educating your family about how the Coast Guard is, quote, the hard nucleus around the Navy forms in times of war. You're a really dull class.
As you heard, the president snap at graduates who declined to clap during his commencement address at the 2021 U.S. Coast Guard Academy, calling them a really dull class. Well, on the outside, the electric version of Ford's F-150 pickup looks much like its wildly popular gas-powered version. Yet the resemblance is deceiving. With its new battery-powered truck, Ford is making a costly bet that buyers will embrace a vehicle that would help transform how the world drives. Now, here is a look at President Joe Biden test driving one this week.
Mr. President!
This sucker's quick.
Mr. President, can I ask you a quick question on Israel before you drive
No,
away?
you can't. Not unless you get in front of the car as I step on it. I'm only teasing. Okay, here we go. You ready?
Branded the F-150 Lightning, the pickup will be able to travel up to 300 miles per battery charge thanks to a frame designed to safely hold a huge lithium-ion battery that can power your house should the electricity go out. With a starting price near $40,000, Ford has calculated that an electric version of America's top-selling vehicle will appeal to the sorts of buyers who favor rugged pickup trucks prized for strength and durability. If it succeeds, this could speed the nation's transition away from petroleum burners. Back to you.
Thanks, Mike. I want to bring John Graves in here. John, I've got to go to that Coast Guard commencement speech. Is that the way you want your commencement speech to be done? You see Reagan, he stole the joke from Reagan. They're relatively the same age, both presidents.
Big difference. Big difference. And I think the last, I don't know if you caught this, but when Joe Biden was driving that car, test driving it, there was another steering wheel on the other side that somebody was actually driving the car. It's almost a prophetic symbol of how his presidency has been. Somebody else is running this. He's trying to echo this from somebody else. And he's the outside face, if you will, of the presidency. But you got to ask the question, who's really calling the shots here all the way through this process? And
John,
so
if you could,
I thought that was ironic.
Put that picture back up. John, you're absolutely right. you can see the Secret Service agent's hand on the other steering wheel. My Lord.
And so it's like a sign of his presidency. Everybody keeps saying, you know, who's really calling the shots? Is it Susan Rice? Is it Obama? Is it Kamala Harris? We don't know. But clearly some of the things he's doing, like stealing Ronald Reagan's and trying to make it funny, it falls flat, because when you're an echo and not a real voice, that's what people are sick of, is fake politicians. And they love the last president, even with all his flaws, because he was authentic.
Wow. And well, he did fight for us. I'm telling you, I wonder about Christians that voted for him, and I'm like, are you still happy with this? All right, let me bring Tim Fox in here. A story that was read a while ago about the southern border. Gonzalez said he pushed hard to open up funds and opportunities for the private sector to help create more jobs and stabilize the economy so people won't leave their homeland. In other words, we want to sow capitalism into Central America, but capitalism is evil here. Is money the answer to this?
Interesting. That is a very interesting point, Greg. Well, money can help, but I mean, obviously prayer, but you have to keep pressure on your representatives. You may say, look, I live in a state that's not on the border. Well, listen, this crisis, if it has not affected your state yet, it will. I saw a report this morning that some lawmakers in another state that's not on the border were concerned about a report that the Biden administration was shipping some of these migrants and some of these children to their state, which is not a border state. It's happening all over the state. Yeah. So if it hasn't affected your state yet, it will. That's why you need to keep the pressure on your elected officials.
Tim, thank you so much. John Graves, I saw you shaking your head with that when I was talking about we're sowing capitalism in Central America and decrying it here. Your thought?
That's the classic hypocrisy that we're dealing with over and over and over. We want to solve the problem with a real solution, which is capitalism, but yet we want to have self-hate in our own country. We want to stop racism, but while we're being racist against just different colors of skin, right? And I 100% agree with Tim. It's put pressure on your state legislature. You're the one. Those of you listening to us, those in our audience and your friends, go mobilize them, because when you move your state representative, it is proven. That's why we do that at millionvoices.org. You can go there. We'll tell you who your state rep is and your state senator.
Right. Tell us about it.
Go to millionvoices.org, sign up, and we'll tell you who they are, because you have more influence with your state legislatures than the federal.
That's right. Thank you, John Graves, for being with us today.